don't make us who we are. So I'll dream until I make it real, and all I see is.
Hi guys, welcome to Manifestation. Why do I say that every time?
Because we are manifesting.
We are manifesting. We'll just call it Manifestation Mondays. Manifestation Mondays with
Or
Maren
maybe
Michelle.
since it never happens on a Monday, just what is it? Mentorship, manifestation mentorship or something.
Yeah. Happy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's a gamble which day you're gonna get it, but we're here. We're here for another happy episode, and I think I could probably move this out of the way a little bit here. Okay, so Maren and I have been chatting, and we just did a behind the scenes, and Maren has a really, really cool story, and I haven't heard the story. I've just heard a little tiny bit of it, so I get to hear it right now with you guys too. But it's really interesting, and so we have some interesting topic to talk about today, and it involves kids. And Maren, why don't you share with us what happened?
Okay, so my son was sick this week. He had a cough and a fever, so it woke him up, and he came down to my husband was out of town, so he came down to sleep with me, and the cough kind of like woke him up, and then he was like, we were talking, and it's actually kind of funny because we were talking, and I went to go get him a drink of water, and when I went to go get him a drink of water, I said, angels, please protect him and please protect us. And I just kind of said like a little prayer for us. And then I got back in bed, and he was like, Mom, there's this rainbow force field around me. What is that? And he's said this to me before, that he has a rainbow force field.
Mm-hmm.
And so at first I was like, well, maybe it's his aura. But then I was like, well, maybe it's the angels and the white light that I just sent around him, because I know people see the white light as rainbow light too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But anyways, he kept talking about this rainbow force field. And I told him that I said a prayer, and then I think it's from the prayer that I said. And he's like, and I see all these orbs, like these lights, they're just everywhere. Like I see so many of them, and I see Grandma Nana, and I see Bella and Nina and Papa's dog, and I see everyone. And then he's like, and then there's these little black and white things. They're balls. They're right here. Oh, it just went away. And he was like going after them.
Wow.
And like, I was like, wow, Tate, that's so amazing. Like, tell me more. And I couldn't see anything, and I was like, wow, that's unbelievable. And then he's like, and I see a man, and he's really dark, and all I see is his eyes. And to me, because that was so different than like everything he had been seeing, it made me think that it was like someone that needed to be crossed.
Yep.
So I said, Tate, whenever you see anything like that, or anything that makes you like a little scared, you just put them in your white light and tell them to go to the light. And so he was like, okay. And he like does this with his hands, and he's like, you need to go to the light, go to the light. And he's like, Mom, he's gone. And I was like, Tate, you just sent him to the light. Like you did it, bud.
That's
and
amazing.
He was like, wow. And I was like, oh my God, it's like the most proud mom moment ever. Right.
That is incredible.
And it was incredible. Like I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm sitting here able to teach my son this, like that's so incredible.
How old is Tate?
He is 7.
Wow. Perfect.
And yeah. And he was like, just kept talking about the light and the rainbow light. And then, he ended up, I rubbed his back, we ended up going to sleep, but I just was so proud of him. And it just made me think like, oh my gosh, he is the reason why I got into this. Like he had experiences as a very young child that kind of blew me away. Like before, I feel like I had experiences, and then but no one ever validated mine.
Right.
And then when he had his experiences, I was like, I will validate this, because I feel like this is real, because I felt like mine were real.
Yes.
And then and like one of the most amazing ones was he went to like a preschool that was at a church, and they had like a little like memorial garden or something like that, like where memory garden.
Yeah.
And there was like a pond with like a little waterfall and like little plaques of remembrance and stuff. And so we just were walking through there because we have nothing else to do. It was a pretty afternoon, and there was a little caterpillar that fell into the pond, and so we had to save the caterpillar.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, and like that was the highlight of our day, that we
Yeah.
saved the caterpillar. And anyways, a few weeks later, we were laying in bed and he said, Mom, there's a ghost above me. And I was like, a ghost? What do you mean? Well, what's it look like? And I'm thinking, like, he's thinking it's going to say, not that he ever saw like Ghostbusters, but it's going to look like a Ghostbuster or like Casper the Friendly Ghost or something like that, is what he
Yeah.
was going to say.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, it looks just like all the ones when we saved the caterpillar. And I was like, oh my gosh. Wow. And it just goes to show, like, kids see things and
Yeah.
they don't tell us.
Yeah.
Like, he never once mentioned anything that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But then, like 2 weeks
Yeah.
later, he's like, oh, it looked like all the ones when we saved the caterpillar. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh. So I know he has the gift. So my question for you today is, like, what can we do for kids? How can we support kids? How can we protect kids?
Mhm.
So like, he has an open invitation to come sleep with us whenever he gets scared, because I was so scared as a kid
Mhm.
and no
Mhm.
one ever believed me.
Yeah.
And so I want him to always, but I don't want him to be scared, bottom line. Like, I would love
Yeah.
for him to stay in his own bed. He's
Yes.
getting older
Yes.
and longer and bigger.
Yes.
And so what do you have to say about all of that?
Well, that's absolutely incredible, to have that experience and to go through that with him. So a lot of us parents will hear our kids tell us something, but not actually be there to witness it with them.
Yeah.
That is incredible that you had that moment, and there will be more moments as well. Um, Tate is definitely, um, both your boys have ability. Tate just he's there's like almost like a film missing. Like it's like he can see clear. That's just part of
Hmm.
who he is.
Hmm.
But he does have a lot of ability to him, and he will continue throughout his life. And you're a big part of that with him too.
I have to say this too, really funny. So speaking of like talking about my truth, and I really felt the need to like come out and say that, I'm a medium. So I haven't told the kids. I mean, I talk about spirituality and openness, but I've never been like, this is what I do. This is what I
Yeah,
can do.
yeah,
And so I was like, had this, like, I'm going to do this week. And so earlier in the week, I go, hey guys, I just want to let you know, like, that I can see people that are, that they don't understand, like, passed on, so
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
that I can talk and hear people that are dead, right? And that are in heaven, I can talk to them. And thinking that they're going to be like, oh, really? Like, and they go, and Tate goes, yeah, Mom, I know. And I can, because I was like, I can see them and hear them. And he goes, I can see, hear them and talk to them too. Like, it was no big deal. And I was like, God, what
he's
was
like,
I
yeah,
like worried
this has
about?
already been going on. Like, yeah, no big surprise. That's so funny. Well, I'll tell you too. Before we get into like what we can do in that, Marcus, which I've talked about many times before, Marcus, well, all of my kids have had experiences. Marcus's have always blown me away because he, he's autistic, and he has always, we could tell that there was like something around him because he would interact with it all the time. Like he would speak in the air, and he would just do things that were, even before he could speak, would do things that we just knew that there's something there that he's interacting with or doing something with. Well, what really started to get interesting was when I was working with Eric, and Marcus one day saw a picture of Eric on the computer, and he pointed to him, and he's like saying, that's the guy in the red shirt, and I'm like thinking, okay, like, is he seeing him? So I started to play little games with Eric where I would like pick a color. I'd say to Eric, what color are you wearing? Eric would say black. And I'd say, Marcus, what color shirt is Eric wearing today? And Marcus would turn and look around, and he'd always look over my left shoulder. Like he'd always kind of go up to the same spot, and he says black. And so then
Wow.
Eric started to give words in my head, and then would have Marcus say the word.
Wow.
So there'd be like, like apple, pear, like something like that. And then Marcus
Yeah.
would just be playing his game, completely tuned out to me and just say the word. And I'd be like, oh my God, like this is crazy. But my daughters as well, what really started my awakening and was a really big deal was my daughter seeing Rob's grandmother after she passed away manifest in our ceiling. And she used to, when she was like 3 years old, she's always been into dinosaurs and reptiles. And Maya's 19 now, but she used to see the dinosaur posters. There'd be like human faces that would come out of the dinosaurs and like look at her and talk to her and
Oh
stuff.
my gosh. That's gotta
And
be scary as a little kid to see
she
that.
was a little scared by it, but they used to tell me about, different beings in their closet. They talked about a little girl that used to stand in the corner of their room every night. And I've talked about it before. Maya still talks. She's much older now, but she still will tell me, I had this experience. This person was standing here, but now she knows how to cross them and do all kinds of different things. And my other daughter has had her own experiences, although she went through a period that was quite scary. So we could talk about as well, what to do when those type of things happen. Um, but it is amazing that Tate is experiencing this and having your guidance. Believing our children is so important because
Mhm.
I, like you, my parents always thought it was because of scary movies, and sometimes it was that would kind of lead into more. But I used to crawl from my bedroom to my parents' room so that they wouldn't see me. I'd like crawl and like lay on the floor because I did not want to be alone because I could hear
Mhm.
them and I could see shifting in the black. I could
Mhm.
see the movement. I knew they were there. And, I was terrified. And I went through a lot of very uncomfortable things for a very long time because I was so scared to be in our basement or be alone. So believing your children that when something is happening, even if you can't completely understand it, the best thing that you could be, if you don't believe it, if you're not sure yourself, listen to them, allow them to express it. And the other thing is too is allow them to express as much as they're comfortable with. And maybe they won't want to talk about it. They might tell you something and then just want to leave the subject and respect that. I think the most important thing for our children, especially when they're up until the age 7, there's 2 development stages that happen. And that one between, the baby and 7, there's a lot that they retain to our reaction to things. And so if we react to their expression of seeing loved ones in spirit or, telling us that there's a monster in their closet and just dismissing them and sending them back to their rooms, then they're starting to get the message that what I feel is not important, what I'm seeing is not real, and my feelings are not being heard. And when you think about a lot of people that are very, um, we'll say, work with spirit, because everybody has the ability just to, connect with them, but somebody that works with spirit is often empathic and often goes through experiences of not of feeling segregated, of not being able to recognize within themselves what they believe. That identity can be a problem as well. And so being able to just say, tell me about it, like you did with Tate, tell me about it. What does it look like? What does it make you feel? And then the next thing, validate is number one. Number two is allow them to think about what it means to them. So, not all kids are going to have Tate's experience where they're going to see certain things that you can really work with because you had a lot there that you could work with. Your child may say to you, I saw something scary in my closet. So you'd validate it and go, oh, you did. Okay. Did you wake up to it? Did it talk to you? Validate the experience. And how did that feel for you? Was that scary? Did that make you feel nothing? Did it, explore their emotions so that you can also validate that it's uncomfortable for them? Because another thing that sometimes can happen is and a lot of this is not purposeful, but when there's like an excitement that your child is communicating, and you really want to ask questions and get in there, sometimes we have to kind of have that um comfort with them to not make them feel responsible for saying a certain answer. I don't know if that makes sense,
Mhm.
but it's
Mhm.
like, allow your child to express in a way that's comfortable. Depending on your child's age, if they're having reoccurring visits, for example, so we'll talk about what Tate saw with the shadow man. And a lot of people will refer to, there are beings that do get referred to as shadow men. Um, the way that I've experienced that is they're fourth dimensional beings. Um, I don't know if they are an actual, like a non-physical being, or if they are okay, I get a bit of both, like a cross being can be this, or like a physical,
That's
I can't even speak, a physical being that's transitioned into
that's funny
spirit.
that you said the shadow man, because I asked Eric what was that, and he said shadow.
Yeah.
Like, so I kind of like, and I was like, oh God, the shadow people. I don't know about
Well,
them.
and I don't know, like I don't really have all the history on this, and from what I gather is that um I guess some of them may have had incarnation at one time, and they stay in that fourth dimensional sphere, the astral plane. And
Yes.
so they're perceived in that way because they're not a cross being. And obviously you can bring them to the light because Tate did. So
Mhm. Or he just made him mad and the guy left. I don't know, but
no, Eric says that he did go to the light. And what
oh,
Eric is also saying is that all beings are able to go to the light no matter where they're from. And that's important for us to remember that, they may resist that and leave, but they all have the choice if that's being offered to them.
that's so amazing that he said that. I think Eric must have told me that the day after too, because I was thinking about it the next day, like, what was that guy? And then I remember Eric saying the shadow guy or a shadow man or whatever. And then I thought, oh, I didn't realize that you can send other beings. I had that exact same thought. Like, I didn't know you could send other beings to light. And then that was the next thought, was like, wow, how amazing is that to know you can send anything to the light. And how amazing is that for kids to be empowered? Like, no matter what you're feeling, just wrap it in light and
Yes,
let that
yes,
negative energy dissolve into the
yes,
light. And
right.
that's like a huge, for anyone to
Yeah.
know.
Well, and that's what Eric is just saying too, is that to be able to, so the next thing would be, so we're validating, we're allowing expression, and expression could also be dependent on your child's age, or really any child. Draw a picture. Can you draw
Mm,
me a picture of what you've seen? Can you tell me about it? Can you tell me about how it feels? But then the next thing is teach them the power of their love, of their natural God-given power within their
mm-hmm,
being, and what they're able to do with that, and show them how powerful their thoughts are and their
mm-hmm,
emotions. How amazing is that, is to empower your child with the force field of love.
mm-hmm,
And when you pump that love out and you send that force field out to somebody, and whether they are physically there or not, doesn't matter who it is, you're able to surround that person in love and make a difference and
mm-hmm,
send that person to the light. And in physical, to be able to send love to somebody might just be the only thing that you can do in a situation.
mm-hmm.
And it teaches a child that they always have a choice. So it's a really, there's a lot of many layers that you can go to with empowering your child. and also teaching them that they don't have to be scared,
Mhm.
you know. Now some other things, um, when my girls were young, I used to put spray bottles of like lavender essential oils and a little bit of water, and I put it in spray bottles, and I'd write on it with black marker with a Sharpie, like monster spray. And
Yeah.
right, and
I
that would,
heard about that too.
because it's belief, right? Power of belief,
Yeah.
intention. And we would spray that and make a force field around the bed. And I mean, they did great with it. It
You
really
know.
worked. And because what you're actually doing is you're putting a force field around it. And what you said to Tate, but the prayer, Eric already said that that was your prayer around
Oh,
Tate, what you saw, what he saw. Yeah.
wow.
So that was also for you to have, like when Eric had worked with Marcus, and being able to allow me to experience through Marcus to validate myself.
Mhm.
Eric said that was also for you to validate the power of your prayer
Prayer.
and
Oh,
to experience that strength, and also to experience that Tate experienced that and knew that, because you'll see more. That's just the beginning, because there'll be many other things that the two of you will experience together, and what you'll experience together as a family as well, because there's many new things that are coming as a um, Eric says, like almost as a graduation present as you go through these. That's really what they are, these experiences. They're gifts. Um, One thing he's also telling me to talk about is like the monster spray can be, if your child's experiencing something that's a little darker. I think it's always amazing when you can say to your child, if you're really scared or not comfortable being in your room, come on here. And I know that that can be hard a lot of times, but if you can do that, that's also comforting because they feel validated in how they feel. Um, but really working on, teaching them that, come in here and get comfortable and talk to me about it, but you're safe, you're okay.
mhm.
Of course, other things to involve your children in are like cleansing the space, regularly cleansing the space, especially when you've got empathic children, and if they're going to school and they're crisscrossing, emotions with a lot of other kids, and a lot of, school is very emotional, brings a lot of emotional charge, and it's a very powerful tool to be able to teach our children how to use their energy, because currently that's not a regular thing taught in school, and I know it will be.
So, on my Instagram, it's an old story, but I was teaching Tate about how to use light to like heal yourself and heal people.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had, poor guy, he had the stomach bug. This is a while ago. And so I was just trying to give him light to help him, like, stop throwing up, and he was so scared when he was throwing up. So like really
Yeah,
just like handle the emotion of being scared,
yeah, yeah.
um and I was just giving him light and everything. And he was like, Mom, it really helped. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad. So then the next day at school, he was in gym class and a little girl got like hit with the ball or something like that. And she was crying. And he said, Mom, she was crying and I sent her light and I surrounded her in the light and then she stopped crying. And I was like, Tate, I'm so glad that you were so caring and so thoughtful to do
That's
that. And you
amazing.
really helped her.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, like I think it is really,
Yeah.
powerful to teach your kids about
Yes. Because
healing
look,
and prayer
look
and
right
light.
there of what you're seeing, and that's something really good for all of us to look at. Is our children have less resistance in
Hmm.
themselves. We learn resistance and contrast. There's already some natural contrast in the world, but we learn through our experiences, because our experiences and the emotions that we feel, they start to store within our energy field, and then they store into the body. So we can understand that when we have this knowledge much later in life, it is that work that we have to do to kind of unravel what we have experienced. But when it's a child that is experiencing their world in a very new state, it's much easier to teach them these tools, and learn them as life skills.
Yeah.
And really it teaches self-responsibility, but it also teaches respect, self-respect, um, the importance of care for ourselves, the importance of uh, healing ourselves, taking responsibility for the cues of our body, taking responsibility for the power of our choice in what we do and of where we direct ourselves. That is the most important thing that any one child or a parent could teach a child to walk through life with, because that, of course, is the core of everything. It's our power within ourselves, and within ourselves is what we connect to the greater part of us and source, which we're all part of. So it's so, so powerful. Um, and there are also unique cases, like there are times where there are some children that have gone through, um, a lot of difficulty with energy. There's some kids that go through like heightened states of energy, where they get very angry and go through a lot of difficulties. And this has been younger than 7 that I've seen, going right up into, up to 16 years old, sometimes older. Um, a lot of kids that I find that are spiritually open can also experience depression and those sorts of things too. But we have to also keep in mind that there's a couple things that play. Sometimes that particular child will be experiencing this because it has to do with their life blueprint. There's certain things that they're experiencing that they're understanding how to use energy from a place of contrast. And sometimes that um, fearful situation or heavy situation is necessary for what they're going to do in life. Because, you know, all of our children, just like us, all have slightly different purposes. So our personal experiences are going to, especially at the younger ages, building that foundation for us to grow from. There's also circumstances where, kids are not in supportive environments. So there might be a lot of, maybe not in the immediate family, but outside of the immediate family, there could be a lot of religious beliefs. There could be a religious belief that has changed in the family. So a child may have been raised in one way, and then that either blew apart or changed. So there's a lot of different circumstances that have come. And, generally speaking, if you're in a place where you're learning and growing these things, it's beneficial to share it with your children, because your children are experiencing the world in a way that they're not telling you everything. And especially when they're younger, that's all they know is is seeing. In some kids, like Tate does see it a little more than other kids, and that's just the way Tate's energy is. That's how he's built. That's how he's built for what he's meant to do in the world too. Um, and so for him, it's going to be a real benefit throughout his life, because he's going to have the experience of having you guide him with it. And so he's not going to grow up with a different belief system. It'll be very much just how it is for him. Some kids will develop more. Eric's just showing me that there's some kids that, maybe don't say much around the age young to 7, or they may be up until 3. They may have given you signs that something's there, and then as they get a little older, they start to shut down. He says there's another awakening state for kids around puberty, around that point. So some may, stay very open, and then others may close down around 3 or 4, and then reawaken around 13 or 14, 12 even. So it really does depend, but the best thing is to be as aware as you can. and to help guide them. And if you don't know, if they're experiencing something that you're not sure about, call for help. There's plenty of us that do this work and help with kids and that have experienced it ourselves, as well as worked with others before, and spirit will guide through as well too. But we're going to see more and more of it in our kids. This
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
kids born, trying to think. I know I think Eric said around 2010, but I'm finding no, Eric said 2012. 2012, but I'm finding can go back as far as 2010, 2009, but mostly between 2012 and the kids being born now. They're born with a slightly different blueprint because they're adjusted to where the world is heading.
That's good.
Yeah,
That sounds like that's
it's
a
very
positive
good.
future
It's
for
a
the
very
world.
very good thing, because each generation, as it always has done, challenges the generation before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for the purpose of expansion. So as each generation comes in, they come in with a purpose, and usually some sort of a mission. I don't know what's going on with my throat chakra. Um, Usually some sort of a mission to help in one way or another, whether it's through the family line, if it's working with humanity, or working with the environment. There's like different subsections of how they come in. But we're going to see more and more kids coming forward with really interesting experiences.
Yeah.
And there's usually like one in four. I would say 1 in 4, 1 in 5 that are very, very sensitive. And
Wow.
Tate is one of them.
Yeah.
Tate is.
And with that goes, here's my like child development side of me, but like, empathic kids feel things so much more. They feel
Yes.
criticism so
Yes.
much more. They feel hurt so much more. And like as an adult, being careful of how we parent is so important, to be so loving and caring and
Yes.
really have that aspect of love. Like, with Tate, he like lashes out a lot. You know what I mean? And like and every time he does that, I'm like, that's because you feel it so much more. Like it's so easy for me to see because I'm connected to all this. You know what I mean?
Right.
And as another parent, if you have like a child who just really seems to lash out, I'm sure, oh my gosh, and we're probably going to be in for it when he hits the puberty age. But it's like to just like come from a state of understanding and love. And we were talking about this earlier with just like your self-talk, how loving you are to yourself. Like we just being conscious of what we put out in the world is so important, especially when it comes to these little empathic children.
Yeah.
And you know, just really love them and not necessarily, I don't want to say discipline, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just
Well,
they
trying to.
require so much
Yeah.
more. I
Yes.
feel like they require so much more tenderness
Yeah.
than the average.
Trying to put
I
them
don't I
into a
wouldn't say
box, or trying to stuff them into uh, uh, an idea of what we're, or what society expects them to be.
yeah.
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 Uh, well, Tate, I don't think you're going to have too much challenge when Tate gets into his teens.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel he's going to lead.
He is a leader.
Yeah, he's definitely
He
going
is
to
a
lead,
leader.
but it's more of a maturity that takes place for him. He'll have his regular moments like all will, but um, he's going to go into like a certain kind of maturity with his energy, and you'll see him move quickly with that.
Oh gosh.
Hmm.
He's He is if I can be a doting mom for a
Yeah.
second, he's the most handsome boy I've ever met in my
Yeah.
life. He
Yeah.
has the biggest, bluest eyes I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And all the girls at school love him.
Yeah.
And so when you're like, oh, he's a leader and he's going to be mature, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Well followed. Well liked.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely feel that for sure. Well, that's really interesting. If you guys have questions, I always forget we're recording. If you guys have questions that you have about any kids or anything that we've talked about, of course, leave comments and we will answer your questions. One of these days, we'll do a live video if I can figure out how to do Zoom through YouTube, which I know Paula showed me if Paula's watching, but
I'm sure I could
yeah,
YouTube how to
yeah, we
YouTube
can probably
that.
figure it out somehow or another. But no, this is really good, and thank you for sharing that special moment with Tate because that's really awesome.
It was really awesome. Very cool.
All right, goodbye, everybody. We will see you here next time at the same bat channel, same bat place. Bye.